Msiama Rafa, is it continuing or Msiama is going with his business?
And I'm saying my business. Murizwe company akafa business robara. When the owner dies, it dies. Why? Because there was no.
My guy. And you know what happens?
Can you not hear yourself?
It will be right in front of you, and you're like,
what's going on?
What? And you're like, look. I'm like, I'm looking.
What is it?
Right, there's the man always behind the camera, always making it happen. He goes none other by the name Tinashe. Hala.
All right, so we are on Hustle Hard with George, with George and Billionaire.
Righty.
George is in the building.
Hala.
And George normally comes through on a Monday to talk all things business, all things hustle, just life in general, whatever hustle it is that you are in or involved in. George is here to assist and just to provoke, inspire, and equip you to keep going. Do not give up. It's almost the end of the year. Maria Capital. Oh, you're still waiting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Capital.
Yeah, you're gonna wait a long time.
It's October.
Yeah. Hala, Pulsars,
your boy.
Capital 100.4 FM family. It's your boy, George Billionaire, and on the decks today, our Capitan, Noma. Who's going to be flying us high. Yeah. You want to clap for yourself. Yeah, Noma is running the show today. If only you could see what's happening in the studio. We've got a captain who is flying us high. But there's such a lovely vibe in the studio. And there's always...
Absolutely.
Today, there's going to be a lot of questions that you've always wanted to ask. Please make sure you send them on the platforms. And we're going to be talking some very exciting things as always. Learning is very important, but the most important thing is applying what we learn. So I'm so excited to be here as always. And Becky, do you believe, I was looking back at our very first episode we did.
Yeah.
It's online. And I was like, wow, it's been 3 years.
Dude.
And we've been doing this show every Monday. And, it's just amazing to see the amount of content we've put out there.
Yeah.
And especially more so the amount of lives we have changed.
Yeah, it's also just goes to show the commitment that you have placed in doing this show, in helping people, in letting them know that the place that they're at is not where they should end. Like there's still more to do in whatever hustle area that they are. Because when we go through the messages, even especially after the show, most of the messages then come through soon after the show, and it's like, okay, people are listening, and then they're digesting everything that is being said, and they're thinking about, okay, George said this. And sometimes when you come through and they're like, we heard it, night George Tashinska, but it just shows that when you hear something repetitively, it will stick in your head and you will do something about it. Yeah, so when you get people who are like, George, you said this last week. George, you said this last week. It just means that they haven't implemented the things that you have said. For those who are implementing, their lives are changing. We saw the testimonials. We've seen people who said, I sold my car. I sold my piece of land. I started this business. I'm into tech. I started small. I'm doing the paperwork. It just goes to show that those that listen and actually apply it get the benefits of it.
Yeah, and that's true. So in life, Becky, there are two types of people. There are ones who will make excuses, and there are ones who will take action.
True.
So you're either one or the other. So when you find out we're in the 10th month and you have not amassed much, it means most likely the thing holding you back is one thing called your excuses, which we talk about on the show, the disease called excusatitis. And making excuses basically means that you're not going to take action. Because if your excuse is bigger than what you want, you're going to remain dormant and you're not going to grow. Basically, you are stunting your own growth. So as we do this show all the time, I can tell you, you're probably not where you want to be because you've made your excuse, as always, which we say, which is blaming everybody else.
Yeah.
Blaming everybody else, from the highest person in the country, in the land, to the lowest person.
Everybody's to blame except
you. You are blaming the weather, the government, everything else. But yet there are those who take action in the same environment that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem to kind of get along and make things work. And you know, one thing for me, which I keep emphasizing, and I think this is why we are here to provoke, inspire, and equip. In the country that we live in, there's so much happening. When you wake up, Becky, and you're not feeling well, do you know that life continues and it does not stop because of your bad day?
Yep. Life will continue.
And when you see everything happening in the country, you might be murmuring and complaining, blaming, money is not going around. If you look outside right now, if you're in your office or if you're driving, there are people rushing, going to work, delivering things and making progress with their life.
Mm-hmm.
But the only person who seems to be stuck and stagnant is you. That's probably because you're not providing a product, a service, or a solution to somebody. And this is very important. And I love, last week, Becky, I was at an amazing entrepreneur hub show,
right,
which is being hosted in the city. And I was so chuffed by how many people in the working sector have heard our show and are actually doing side hustles other than just having a job, because they understand, yes, having a job is great, but my job is not going to take care of all of the things that I want. And one of the questions that was
it's not going to take care of everything.
Yeah, and one of the questions that was asked there, Becky, was that of finance.
Yes.
And that's one of the most common questions people ask. George, I need capital to start a business. And there were a couple of banks who were there who were addressed, and they were asked, why don't you give young people startup capital to actually get their businesses started? So it was a very interesting topic, which banks then said you need collateral, and we were saying we need to actually really empower the young ideas. And the bank said, no, we've got incubation hubs, and now that's how we're doing it, which is great. At least it's a thumbs up to all the banks who are actually doing something.
Because I think what people also forget is if you're going to get startup capital, you are borrowing money. It's not like they're giving you the money.
That's right.
And they say whether you make a loss or a profit, we don't care. It's not like that.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is if you get startup capital from someone, they are actually loaning you that money.
Yeah.
You are now in debt. Whether it's 10,000, it means you have started your business at minus 10,000. So if you can start your business with no minuses, with no debts, and build it up slowly. The thing is, people don't want to build up slowly now.
That's it. People
They're
just
looking at, I'm 50.
And Becky, in the life we live, with social media, I mean, Becky, I saw you doing what you were doing this weekend.
Yeah.
And you look so amazing, so glamorous. But unfortunately, I wish they were back in the days, your very first emceeing event.
Yeah.
How your hair and your outfit was not combinationing. It was not going.
It was not make sure.
Coordination,
It
we were
was
not there.
make sure. It was as long as I'm dressed.
Yeah, but
I'm dressed.
people now want to see the end result and say, I want to be there now. But unfortunately, that's not how life happens.
Yeah.
You cannot plant a seed today and automatically get a big fruit or a harvest tomorrow. It's a process. And that's what our current generation lacks, because they believe in get rich quick scheme. They don't believe in planting that seed and watering it and working on it and being known.
Yeah.
Becky, I'm if there's one person in the whole country I'm proud of, who I've seen starting from the bottom, and who many people do not want to work with, it's Becky K. Because back then, you'd get one gig, you'd get $20, $50 just to cover your transport. Because
if I got paid.
Back then, it was about, we'll give you exposure. But imagine how many years. It's been a good 10, going on 15 years now in the industry. And now it's paying fruit.
Absolutely.
And now they are big corporates. And that's the key thing with life. Let us not believe in get-rich-quick schemes. Let's believe in starting slow, going slowly. Progress. Let's take the steps a step at a time. And we've heard this so many times. The pastors we know, the prophets we know, they never had all these numbers of people in the first service. We had a show this week where unfortunately there were not a lot of people who came to attend that show. But is that supposed to set him back from being who he is? I can tell you the greatest artists have had flops. But those are lessons. And you know what happens in life? You just have to keep your head up and learn from that lesson, because there must have been something that went wrong, which you now need to then correct on the next outcome.
What do we learn from that incident? Because I'm sure he did the planning, I'm sure he did the marketing, and I'm sure there's people who love his music.
Yeah.
But the numbers just didn't.
So for me,
show
you know
up.
what? Big shout out to Toki Vibes, and yeah, his amazing music. He's great. But I think there's a lot of things that were happening this weekend. So many shows were happening at one time. And unfortunately, sometimes when you foresee your ticket sales aren't going according to how you'd want, you may need to re-strategize and postpone something. There's nothing wrong
Let's
with
put
postponing.
that into business terms.
Yeah.
This was a concert, and just like you rightfully said, you can foresee that ticket sales are not moving. But tickets are asked to tengwa.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people who have come through, maybe you gave them tickets mahara, you're
Yeah.
just trying to promote the show. But in business terms, like on the hustle side of things, what can we learn from that incident?
So for me, Becky, I've always said this: no man is an island.
True.
And in the counsel of multitude, there's wisdom, right? In the book of Proverbs, it says, when you're surrounded by wise people, they will give you their wise insight and advice on how to become a wise person yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, especially regarding business, and especially for, in quotes, this show, I think there was not a lot of counsel done. Remember last week on the show, you asked me, what's one thing that you did that helped you to establish Pro Air? And I tell you, I got mentors. I went around people who have done what I have not done, and I asked them for advice, and they gave me advice. And especially people who are in the entertainment industry would be able to say, this weekend is not a good weekend. Why? Because there are 7-8 clashing shows, which potentially can lead to a lot of many things happening, which will affect your numbers in terms of making, you know, a great album launch. So I would say here, there's a serious issue with management, because if you are the one, remember we were talking about, I was the receptionist, I was the marketer, I was everybody.
You were everything.
I was changing voices, you know, but that does not aid me to go where I want to go properly. So I think it's important, and you know, it's a very painful lesson, and we shouldn't blame anybody else but ourselves, because one thing that we've learned in life is that failing to plan is planning to fail. And if you plan a show, yes, great, but remember, your show is attended by people. And if those people have a lot of entertainment on that specific day, I can guarantee you your numbers are going to be dwindled, and you're not going to get the outcome that you want, because there are so many things that are being offered on that day. So for me, I would really look at management, deal with management. This is an internal issue, right? I think also in terms of visibility, of knowing exactly what was going on pertaining this, it wasn't really out there. So there's a lot of internal things that they need to look at. And as a business, if you look at how business is operating, if you're not getting sales, you really need to look at your sales team. You really need to look at some of the internal things, and not blame the market. It's not the market. It's probably how we are positioning or are failing to identify our niche, which is affecting our low sales, or we are in the wrong location because, you know, things are not coming out the way we want.
Okay, so bad sales are going to happen, and you just need to go back to the team, re-strategize, and then go back and put your product
You know,
out
one
there.
thing I can tell you, Becky, there's a word called adapting, right? And change is one of the most difficult things people don't like to do.
Yeah.
And back in the day, Becky, do you remember when people used to want to buy cell phones, fridges, to sell their cars? Do you remember back in the day there was what was called classifieds?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we remember those days. And you had to go and submit your advert so it would be
Advertise
nationwide.
So people can find.
So imagine if you are still of that mentality that I need to go to the classifieds. Who's going to look at the classifieds in this day and age? Nobody. So if you're out there and you have a product and you fail to adapt to the current environment, where people now are more on their phones and more on watching TV, are more on, you know, their tablets, their laptops, that's where people's attention is. We need to adapt and change, because failing to adapt to change will cause us to get low sales and ultimately closing ship and being out of business. There's a company called Kodak. There's a company called Nokia. We knew them once upon a time to be the number one in their industry.
Yeah.
And because they failure to adapt, they became irrelevant.
Yeah, they did.
And a lot of people forgot about them because they said, no, people still need this. But according to the times, guess what happened? People got used to the touch. People got used to the smaller, the better, the more smarter, and they adapted to that. And the whole world went left, and they remained right, and they were isolated, and nobody wanted to look that way. So with your business, adapt to change, because if you fail to adapt, it's only a matter of time when you're going to see your overheads are not being met. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Now you're operating in debt. Your business is not profitable. Then you're going to close because you are not willing to constantly keep updating your mental software, especially in regarding business. Because as a business owner, as a sales team, that's why top businesses have sales training seminars every quarter.
Yeah.
That's why there are goals set. That's why there are objectives. What do we want to achieve this year as Pro air conditioning? How many units do we want to install? And you have to have a track record of it, because if you're just operating chamuka inyama, whatever happens, without quantifying what you want to achieve, it's not a proper business. You must have targets. You must keep updating your sales teams, ways of doing business, because you can't email clients and think that's the only way to communicate, because maybe somebody didn't come to work and they didn't read the email, and then guess what, you were supposed to submit something, but somebody who was more savvy sent a WhatsApp, sent an inbox, sent this code, sent an audio, did you receive this? 7, 8 ways of communication, and they got the deal done. But with your sales team, they're saying, no, we sent the email, we're waiting for a response. And because of that lack of change in mindset, especially with this very adaptive clientele that we have now, who want things quick, because the consumer these days wants convenience. They want something at their doorstep. They want, I can swipe on delivery, I can pay once you deliver, I can, that's what people want now. So as people out there, we have to be willing to adapt. We have to be willing, at Pro Air, we had a coach come in to do with our sales team.
All right.
And like I said last time, in fact, last week on the show, I said, if you think of somebody in your organization who's not productive, if you keep that person in your organization, Becky, do you know what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
They're going to affect the rest of the sales team, and you're going to have a procrastinator, one who is not able to do what they're supposed to do, because they always have excuses, they always have reasons. This is why, for those who watch soccer, we are always buying a new midfielder. At Manchester United, my team, we bought the best of the best, and we are hoping with the current changes.
Good luck.
Same is it. We don't believe in luck. We are playing GGMU. We shall,
Let you try to cry, my beloved country.
But I believe. And
you believe?
I believe. And
is it just you who's believing, or everybody else?
No, everybody. The Red Army. The Manchester United guys, they are
business.
very.
Let's
but
focus
this
business.
is back to business. But the most important thing is we acquired certain players, strikers, midfielders, and it's the same thing with the business. Failure to recruit the right personnel is going to cause your business to fall. And you have to be that adaptable person. And especially as startup entrepreneurs, remember we're talking about it. Is it okay to recruit family? If they are not delivering, you should be very crude enough to say, I need to chop this off.
I'm glad that you brought that in. You spoke about family just now, and then earlier on, as you were breaking down the whole process of getting things done right in the business, you spoke about change and how people are afraid of change and are afraid to adapt. What happens in a case where you have to pass on Pro Air to your son, or one of your sons maybe shows interest in the business? How do you then prepare your workers to say, I am passing on this business to my son? I'm no longer the one in charge. It's now him that you are reporting to. Obviously, resistance is going to be there, like, Inini, I've been working here since the inception of this business. How come this little boy who doesn't know anything about the business is being given the business? There's those squabbles within the workplace because you want to keep the business within the family. How do you then plan like a flawless succession plan?
Wow. So when it comes to succession, now succession is a process that does not happen overnight. And I tell you, for Africans, especially Africans, our fellow brothers, that's one thing that we have failed to do and transition in a good manner, because most of the time we're not involving our family, our kids at a very inception stage of the business. Now, I learned from one of my mentors. He's of a very lighter color than myself, and he's now third, fourth generation entrepreneur who his great grandfather had this business. And he tells me all the time that school holidays, he used to be taken to work, be dropped off with great granddad, and great granddad would send him around. He would send him for teas, he would sit into meetings, and he would listen. So that was at a young age preparing somebody for how the business would run. And I remember this guy at that age was grade 5, 6, 7. And later on, because it was granddad then left and it was passed on to his dad. But because he was already in the system, he loved how granddad used to do things, how we used to manage stuff, how granddad did not tolerate an imperfect job, how granddad did certain things. That trained a child at an early inception age.
Okay, and it's not really like sitting down to say, hey, this is what we do. It's just move around with me and watch.
And the best way, remember what we say, monkey see, monkey do. So it's unfortunate for Africans. We say, no, this is our business. You must continue this. And we do it in an enforcing way instead of a way to actually get the children to see the benefit of actually being involved in this business, that they personally gain self-interest. So because we are Africans, because we are the first line entrepreneurs, Becky, I don't know any African who is second line generation entrepreneur.
It's painful.
It is. And it's unfortunate that, sure, what is that Shona to say? Kutupanofa Kamba, you know.
Noma. What do they say? Noma is our Shona.
Yes, our translator. When the business dies, and I'm saying our business, Murizwe Kamba na akafa, business robara. When the owner dies, it dies. Why? Because there was no information of where did dad get the sales, where did dad get the stock, who are our suppliers, who are our key clients. And when he goes, nobody knows. Even the records where the supplier in China was, nobody knows. But because there was no
normally in some cases what happens is the family members won't, but there's someone within the workplace, the person who was always moving with the boss, then says, why wasn't the business given to me? Because I was the one moving with him. Maybe his sons and daughters were not moving with the dad or the mom, but there's a worker who was there, who was seeing everything, who knows the ins and the outs of the business. Should the business not then be taken over by him, or does it become a family choice, or once Msiama dies, business going?
And I think you've seen it. We've seen it so many times. Unfortunately, with Africans, if Becky was right-hand person, and now the owner of the company is not there anymore, they feel, no, Becky can't, because Becky will do things with money we won't understand. And unfortunately, there's no transparency in the handover takeover, which is why people would say, rather better it dies than for it to continue. You see, and it's unfortunate. But when you see other generations in terms of culture, other people of race have managed to do it so well, and we have a lot to learn. And I say this all the time. We need to get out of this mindset of racism and actually adapt and learn, because there's a lot of learning from people of other culture, because they have been doing this longer than us. They have been running businesses for the past 80, 100 years. Whereas for us, it's just 5 years. And we have not even passed the baton to the next generation. So we can't. So we have to learn and be able to say, how did Mr. Smith do it? It's important to learn, because remember, success leaves clues.
Yes, it does.
If you think we know everything, no, we can't learn from these people, I can tell you, we are going to shoot ourselves in the foot, having learned how the transition of wealth could have been done.
True.
And that's why I tell you, if there's somebody out there who knows a company which has passed from one generation to another, from us Africans, please do state it down. And it has continued going. And this key fact that I spoke about, there hasn't been that from a young age. You know, they are farmers. I remember friends who I went to school with, Becky. School holidays, they'll be at the farms with their parents, right? The Indian community, they'll be in the shops during school holidays. But you and I, our children, they are playing games. They are on holiday.
Yes.
There's no business ethics being taught. They are just chopping the money.
Business,
Understand?
Someone is asking, what can the Western people learn from us as Africans in business?
You see, and let's be very real, because it's so important. I think even with farming, there's a lot that we culturally are strong in. We're strong in culture, right? Unfortunately, as Africans, if you read a book, there's nothing that Africans have actually invented, and that's a bad thing. I mean, in terms of culture, yes, tinembira, tinemarimba, tinechi, but in terms of business ethics, there's not much we've done. Because remember, most African countries, richest in the world, but we always export our things to then buy them back at an expensive price. So we have a lot to learn, especially I love what our country is doing, especially regarding now saying no more exporting certain things. Let's purify our own things, because that's how you begin to emancipate our mindsets to be able to say we can do these things. So it's important we realize that, you know what, there's a lot to learn from out there. Let's learn, let's apply, especially in our countries, in our businesses. And I can tell you, we will strive a lot quicker having applied those things we've learned from other cultures and races and applying them to now our own businesses.
It's a minute to news time. We just had a sit down with George, Billionaire, for Hustle Hard, and we're talking all things business, but mainly focusing, especially towards the end, on a family business, creating a succession plan that addresses the leadership transfer and all in the businesses that you have as a family. Imini, Msiama Rafa, is it continuing, or Msiama is going with his business? It's 1 o'clock on Capital. Stand by for the news.